Welcome to the Accelerating Operational Performance podcast. I'm Greg Schinkel, President of Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems. And today I wanted to feature one of our new offerings, which is the Plant Manager Effectiveness Program. This is a new program to help plant managers go from being good to being great. And you can find out about it on our website at uniquedevelopment.com. Now, to start the new year, I thought it would be good, since you want to increase your results this year, increase the engagement on your team, that I would share with you a few observations that I've gained from doing some site visits to clients. And this is something that you'd think we would have done a lot in the past, but really it's something we started doing even more in 2025. And so I thought if I distilled the top 3 observations that I've made, it might help you as you're leading your team to be successful in the year ahead. And so let's start with the first observation, and that is there's still lots of evidence of decision-making waste. Now, if you haven't heard me talk about decision-making waste, that is basically where the more senior leaders in the organization are getting involved in solving problems and making decisions that probably should be made 1 or even 2 levels lower in the organization, closer to the front line. And why that's important? Well, there's really a couple reasons why it's important. It's important because the folks closest to the work technically have the most information about what's happening, what's causing it, and perhaps even what the best solution might be. Whereas when I take a manager or a supervisor who's 1 or 2 levels removed, they're going to have less information. They have the authority to make decisions and solve problems, but they're really not doing it on the basis of knowing the most about it. And the second challenge with getting involved in those problems is that really the folks at the middle and the top of the organization are supposed to be focused on improving the business and growing the business. So when you're involved down deep in the weeds, trying to solve problems, make decisions that your team should be making, you're really on one hand being helpful, but on the other hand being unhelpful because you're holding the team back from becoming even more effective in the future. All right, so the first observation is let's keep focused on eliminating decision-making waste, or at least reducing it. Second observation that I have is I saw a lot of operations that are profitable, so they're doing well. You could argue that their numbers are okay. But when I look at the efficiency rates, and admittedly, efficiency calculations, they can fluctuate a little bit back and forth. But when I see that some lines, even the best lines in some of the facilities might still only be running at, high 30, 38, 39, 40%, maybe 50%. And we just seem to accept this efficiency that the machines are really only running and producing good product half the time. And one person put it to me this way. They said, our management, because we are making money, would almost sooner spend another $1 million on a piece of equipment rather than looking at the existing equipment and seeing how to increase the efficiency from, let's say, 40% up to 60, 70, or even 80%. And of course, world class would be to run your machines and get the highest amount of output and efficiency as you can. So it's just an area to think about in your business. What efficiency rates are we accepting being much lower than what they should be? And what would it take if we were to run those machines or those processes close to their theoretical or their stated value? And let me just make another comment about that. I was in a client, and one of their machines was running at 10 pans per minute. So that was the production rate. But all the production manager asked is, what should the machine be running at? And it turns out it should have been running, it was designed to run at 13 pans per minute. So we asked the team, why do we run it at 10? And they just said, you know what? Because that's when it seems, that's just the way we've been running it. And so he said, well, let's try running it at 13. And they did. And of course, productivity went up by 30%. So do your people know the standards of what the line is capable of running at? And do you as the leader, first of all, know what it's actually running at? And do you ask questions like, this machine is designed to run at 800,000 pieces per shift, and we're running it at 600,000. Why is that? And of course, there's going to be lots of reasons you're going to hear. They're going to say, well, we've tried running it at full speed and it causes problems. And so people inevitably dial it back to where it appears to run in the sweet spot. But nobody ever asks, what would it take to go from what we're currently running at to running at 1/3 more? So there's an idea to focus on, is how to increase efficiency closer to what the machine in the process is capable of. The third observation that I'd like to share is around support functions. Now, of course, I used to think about support functions as being kind of your job is to serve manufacturing and production, and there's still probably some truth to that. But the other way you could look at it is we're in a collaborative relationship. We're supposed to be working together to solve problems and hit our production targets. And what I noticed is that in the meetings that I got to sit in, I would see the support functions kind of sitting back. And by support functions, we could be talking about maintenance. We could talk about procurement or, purchasing. Could talk about the scheduling folks, the health and safety. And what I noticed is that those folks kind of sit back. If you think about it, sometimes they have an easier job, and I don't mean that to be dismissive if you're running one of those functions, but an easier job because they're not accountable necessarily for the operating results, but they influence those operating results. And what I noticed is that there can be a lag between the factor where there's a problem and the response from the support function. And meanwhile, the production floor is dealing with those interruptions. And I've noticed that the support functions, when they do get engaged, they often do it by remote control. They'll sit in their office or their cubicle and they'll use emails back and forth, when what they should be practicing is the concept called Gemba. Now, Gemba is the term that basically, you may have heard the term Gemba walks, but Gemba is just this view of, if we're talking about a problem, instead of us trying to go back and forth on an email or even a phone call, let's go to where it's happening. Let's go to the source and observe it. And we can learn so much when we observe it. We can talk to the people around the process and ask them questions. We can look at what solution would actually make it better. And so if you're in a support function, I suggest that you use Gemba. If you're in the manufacturing function, you're a supervisor or a production manager, I suggest that you ask your support functions to come on the floor with you, to go to where it's happening, to see how they can add more value, to understand the impact of some of their actions and decisions and how it's influencing the production rate. So there you go. There's 3 observations that I think you could learn from to make a more successful year ahead. It's to avoid decision-making waste, empower your team to make decisions. It's to look at efficiencies. What is your equipment and process designed to run at? How do you get it closer to that? How do you close that gap between your actual and your potential? And finally, if you're a support function, how do you make sure that you go and be hands-on, closest to the action, to see how you can add maximum value? Now, if any of that resonated with you as things you want to work on, well, that's something that we're going to address through our Plant Manager Excellence program, but we also address it through our Frontline Leadership program, where we equip leaders to be more effective in their role in solving problems and engaging their team. So it all starts with the conversation. So please reach out to us at uniquedevelopment.com, and we look forward to helping you achieve the full potential of your operations and your talent.